that we still try to make sure that people are included where they want to be. So we still have speakers who show up for our polishing events because they like to interact with everybody, and those are pretty fun. So people do show up for that.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just want to pause on that really quick that polishing event, I love that we're calling it that, but for everyone listening, after a day of tasting wines at these different seminars for TexSom, there are a lot of dirty glasses. And so you guys, there's a couple pieces to this that I want to break down. So you guys make sure that all of those glasses have been run through a cleaner. I mean, you've got your Hobarts or whatever the Irving Convention Center has. So the glasses are clean, but you guys take the extra step to make sure that they're polished, which shows something meticulous and shows something I'm going to ask you in a second.
Ciao, y'all. I'm Jessica Dupuy, guest host for a special TexSom series covering the 2024 TexSom Wine Conference from Dallas, Texas. Join me in the heart of the Lone Star State as we delve into the experiences and insights of key speakers and attendees, exploring career paths, challenges, and the latest trends in the wine industry. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. Well, welcome, James Tidwell. We are excited to have you here on the Italian Wine Podcast. I am thinking we might just jump in here. You have quite a history with the TexSom conference, and I'll let you explain exactly how. But maybe you could kind of give us the story. Take us back to 2005. What is TexSom and how did it all start?
Well, first, thank you for having me. Wonderful to be here. I do have a lot of history with TexSom. TexSom was co-founded in 2005. And the original time frame we're talking about was very different from what it is now. So I can give you an idea of that through my experience, which is I did the WSET diploma. There was only one provider in the whole country, and that was the International Wine Center in New York. So if you wanted to do the WSET diploma, you either had to be in New York or you had to take it correspondence. And by correspondence, I mean the mail, not through the internet at the time. In addition to that, with the Court of Master Sommeliers, I flew across the country to take my intro to the Court of Master Sommeliers. And the same thing with the Society of Wine Educators. So the major certification bodies were not established in the way they are now and didn't have the presence. In addition to that, things like trips, which many people consider to just be a normal part of our business now, were not a thing at the time. So really what we had was this lag between information getting to the people who needed it and wanted it. And so TexSom, in a way, acted like an early version, live version of the internet. We tried to narrow that gap between what was happening in the wine world and how people found out about it. So the Texas Sommelier Conference, as it was originally known, was founded for people in the state of Texas who were in the hospitality beverage industries so that they could learn directly from the people who were making these decisions, who had been to these places and could really learn directly from them, but also speak to them on a one-to-one basis and see them. Vice versa, we also had the issue in Texas that at the time, a lot of importers wouldn't send their wines to Texas because there was a stereotype about what kind of wines were being consumed in Texas. So this also allowed TexSom to show these importers that there was interest in various types of wines that may not be in the state yet. So that's really how TexSom started. I was working for Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts at the time and had wanted to do a Four Seasons Wine and Spirits Professionals weekend. And it sort of derived from that and the idea of doing a sommelier competition, which we did in the early years.
Well, it's interesting you say that because fast forward 20 years and now Texas does have the opportunity to take the diploma in the state. Yay, because that's what I've been able to do. I was waiting and waiting. Society of Wine Educators, you can take the exams here. And then obviously, the Court of Master Sommeliers for many years after TexSom launched ended up being at the Four Seasons where you were working.
Correct. And now the IMW is doing a lot in the US as well. So we really have a very different landscape now, but TexSom hasn't really changed that much in those terms. We still bring in experts in their fields to talk about what's happening. We still want to narrow that gap. We want to provide personal interaction, which is why we request that all of our speakers stay for the entire conference rather than flying in to present and then flying out. We want to make sure that people have the chance to interact with them.
I love that that angle. And that's not something you hear often, right? I mean, everybody's got busy schedules. These are important people. But when you're at TexSom, you feel that. You're like, hey, this person gave a presentation 2 hours ago, but now he's walking around the expo and tasting wines, and I get to talk to him or her. In that sense, it's professional, but it's a casual environment and you can interact with everyone.
Yeah, and it was engineered to be that way. In the early days, when it was a smaller conference, we had master sommeliers, masters of wine, speakers, everybody involved in setting up rooms, polishing glasses. Everybody contributed. It really was a community effort. And so it is carried through, even though now as we've grown, we've had to put some duties into silos or responsibilities into silos a little bit. We still try to make sure that people are included where they want to be. So we still have speakers who show up for our polishing events because they like to interact with everybody, and those are pretty fun. So people do show up for that.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just want to pause on that really quick that polishing event, I love that we're calling it that, but for everyone listening, after a day of tasting wines at these different seminars for TexSom, there are a lot of dirty glasses. And so you guys, there's a couple pieces to this that I want to break down. So you guys make sure that all of those glasses have been run through a cleaner. I mean, you've got your Hobarts or whatever the Irving Convention Center has. So the glasses are clean, but you guys take the extra step to make sure that they're polished, which shows something meticulous and shows something I'm going to ask you in a second. Second of all, not only are you asking that those glasses get polished, but it's a lot of glasses. So over the years, you've managed to make this a super fun experience because you have volunteers who are, aspiring sommeliers or wine professionals in some way. These are people who are moving forward in the industry. But then, yes, you allow your speakers, and so different master somms and masters of wine, et cetera, they're all hanging out at like 10 o'clock at night or later after a long day, polishing glasses and listening to music and drinking great wines and having a good time. And I'm amazed at the many levels that brings. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but it's pretty cool. I've participated myself, so I have a lot of fun when I do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And when we first talk about it, people think, well, how is that fun? But the way that came about was that we did need to have glasses polished. So we would do that late in the evening, and winemakers started figuring out that's where all the volunteers and summer camp people were. Some of the speakers were down there. And so they would start wandering down with their wines. Well, one of the principles of TexSom is there's no pouring wine from under the table. There's no, you get this and you don't. Everything's out there for everybody. And so one of the things we didn't want to do was to become a clique. And so what we decided to do was make it a sponsorship. And the first couple of years was a rough sell on that because people just couldn't wrap their heads around it. And then it became our most popular by far sponsorship because somebody sponsors, they come in, they present their wines for a few minutes, they hang out with us, they have their wines available, people wander over, talk, interact, taste the wines. In addition to that, there's music. Sometimes there's some dancing going on. It just depends. But in the midst of all that, we get several thousand glasses polished as well. So it's a great time to interact with others, to have some fun. And when else are you going to be standing next to a master of wine or master sommelier, or, a diploma holder, whoever, or Laura Catena or, Kathy Corison, and polishing glasses, chatting about the wine industry. Some of the best connections, I think, at TexSom, from what I've heard, have been made over stacks of glasses while you're polishing them, because it's a real opportunity to interact in a way that you don't normally interact. It's a more casual and fun way to interact, but a lot of serious conversations happen about things like, well, what wines are selling in your area, or how do you get this particular type of wine into your store, into your restaurant, and things like that. So it is a multifaceted concept. We were actually offered the opportunity to have polishing machines at one point, and we turned it down because it actually destroys one of the core items of TexSom that makes it what it is and really allows people to interact with each other.
Which is funny because it's not like you planned it that way. It just has kind of organically evolved.
Well, so many things in TexSom have organically evolved. And, that's the same way with our awards that we have with the TexSom Awards, which is a beverage competition. It derived from the Dallas Morning News wine competition. And the volunteers there have have made that what it is because they come up with solutions, they come up with new programs for us. So it is still a community effort.
I love that. And I think it transitions into something that I feel like, we've talked about education being an important part of TexSom. But one of the things, I've been going to TexSom for a number of years and in many different capacities, right? Either as media or speaking or helping, whatever I can do, I'm a fan. And, one of the things you always talk about and people who have been going forever have always talked about is that hospitality is the key to what y'all are doing. So it's great if you know all the things about wine, and it's great if you can sell the wine, and it's great. Like all of those are important pieces, but you guys have really driven home the concept of hospitality, which is my thing, almost an art that's getting lost sometimes in our culture right now. So can you maybe talk about why that's important to kind of the essence of TexSom?
Well, it's important to the essence of our roles as sommeliers and retailers, I think, as much as it is to TexSom. And, TexSom's just a reflection of the industry. There is no sommelier or wine retailer that's smarter than anyone who owns a smartphone. Anyone who owns a smartphone can stump you with a question. That's not that hard to do, actually, if you know which questions to ask. The other part about that is I've been working with some people who are into generative AI. There will come a point at which someone will create a food and wine pairing app that actually is relevant and works consistently. How far that is down the road, I don't know, but it is in the future, I think. And once you say, well, what's a sommelier's role, especially a sommelier, but a retailer, this could apply to as well. What is their role? If you say, well, it's knowing about wine and being able to talk about what's on the list, well, that may be less relevant soon. If you say it's matching food and wine, that could be less relevant soon. So what does that leave us with? It really leaves us with hospitality and service. And so to me, the core, the essence of what we do as professionals is hospitality and service. It's not really knowing everything about wine. You can't. It's knowing what's important to your guest. And part of that is hospitality and service. And so really the wine knowledge and all these other things come in service to hospitality. And that's what we tried to emphasize at TexSom.
I love that. I love that.
We made a lot of changes in how we do things over the years and tried to emphasize our own hospitality for those helping and for those attending.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm also curious. I think this is one of the things I admire most about TexSom, and that is the way in which speakers are invited to come, the topics that are selected. And, once you start with the people that are going to be speaking about them, obviously they might evolve a little bit. But in general, can you kind of break down how you go about selecting your topics, selecting your speakers? And I'll just go ahead and put it out there. But, having come from the journalism industry, having come from magazine publishing where the importance of separation of church and state, so editorial and advertising never mix and aren't supposed to cross a line. Can you talk to me about how the speakers are selected, how the topics are selected, and how separation of church and state kind of falls into TexSom?
One of the foundational principles of TexSom that has not changed. We don't take solicitations. We don't take formal proposals. I think that a lot of times there can be some self-interest in those, and we also want to ensure that we're giving unbiased education. So we do separate marketing or advertising from our educational content. There are no sponsored seminars at TexSom. Sponsored seminars are not something that we do. Other organizations do that, and that's fine. It's a different business model. Ours is not to do that. And the reason is that once somebody buys a seminar, the content is theirs to create. We want a more holistic version of the conference where we have a better roundness to the conference in terms of the subject matter involved. So we don't take solicitations or proposals, and we don't allow sponsored seminars. What we do is canvass a lot of the wine world. We are constantly in talks with people about wine, about beverages, what's going on in the business side of things. I keep up with a lot of magazines that actually don't have to do with wine. I read a lot of magazines that are about sociology or about philosophy or other things that really don't directly relate to wine, but inform what happens at the conference. Likewise, we pay attention to social media, but it's not the numbers on social media that we're paying attention to. It's who's putting out good content that is accurate, that is unbiased. It may be analytical and critical, but it's not biased in terms of marketing. So we do the same thing with the conference by canvassing the industry, and then we create our own plot of seminars and the map for the conference. From there, we commission the speakers to speak at the conference. So all of the speakers at TexSom have been invited by TexSom to speak rather than soliciting TexSom to speak.
I think this is super important. And I think it's an area in which we're losing our way, not necessarily in terms of it's hard to know what's bought information and what's not bought information.
Right.
And I think for me, as someone who's attended for so many years, it's one of the things I always stand by. And why, I mean, I speak to people all over the country where I'm like, have you been to TexSom yet? Like, this is the place to go, because whatever you're hearing there has been vetted out, has been researched. These are people who are presenting based on their expert knowledge, not based on someone telling them to do it and giving them a check at the end. Anyway, so it's something I definitely appreciate. I know it's something a lot of other people appreciate.
There definitely are sponsored opportunities at TexSom. I don't want to give the idea that we don't take sponsorship. We certainly do. But to your point, we make clear what's a sponsored opportunity and what's not. And the conference seminars themselves are not sponsored opportunities. Having said that, in those sponsored opportunities, which are polishing events, their meals of all types, and the expos, we encourage our sponsors to make those educational as well. So you get two different viewpoints at TexSom. You get one from the marketing standpoint of the companies themselves and their education, but then you also get a second version of that education through the TexSom seminars that aren't related to what's happening in terms of sponsorship. So they're really two different versions of education going on at TexSom. I like that mix. I like those opportunities to do both. And we really have some great people presenting at a lot of those sponsored opportunities. I mean, you've got, Lisa Granick talking about Georgia, or Mark Davidson talking about Australia, or, many others who are highly respected in their fields, and they will be talking at lunches or dinners or other places, but those are very clearly marked as sponsored opportunities.
Exactly. No, I love that. And I think that's just a very clear way to do things. So, you mentioned something about AI, and that kind of is a great way to lead into, as you look ahead, as you mentioned, you're constantly reading things other than the topics of wine. You're talking to people, networking, traveling, all of these things to stay up on trends. What are some of the things, the kind of pressing educational needs for wine professionals as you see it, and kind of how do you see TexSom addressing those things?
I think there are a couple of areas. One of them is our ability to talk about wine in a way that's engaging to the general wine consumer. And so we've got a couple of seminars related to that this year. Sherry Morano is going to be talking about basically non-alcoholic products, but other things, and what their role is in our industry. In addition to that, we are talking about the state of the industry in general and what's happening in the broader industry right now. So we do address those topics, but coming up, I would say AI is going to be a topic at some point. I want to find the right people to present it, but I think that AI is going to be a topic because we can't ignore it in the wine world. I think we will continue to talk about how to talk about wine to consumers, because I think we've lost the thread a little bit on how to talk to people about wine then in a way that's not intimidating. I have recently gotten into fountain pens, and I joined a fountain pen group on Facebook, and they're so encouraging of each other. It's amazing that somebody will post that they've just bought their first fountain pen, and it may be a $10 or $20 fountain pen, and people are excited for them because they're getting into the industry. And too many times in our forums on wine, we tend to make fun of people who are just entering the industry, or we don't encourage them as we should. And so I feel like that, how to talk to people about wine is going to be one of the big topics in the future, because we really need to learn how to market wine better than what we've done in the past few years, I think, or in different ways.
In different ways. I think that's really great. Which,
Yeah.
you touch on 2 points. It's how to speak to the consumer, but also the importance of mentorship and welcoming people into the fold who want to do wine professional jobs, like whether that is on the floor or in retail or importing distribution. The encouragement is important. That's what brings people in.
And we hope that's what TexSom accomplishes as well, is it provides a base for people where they can meet other people in the industry and be encouraged and be sustained in their roles, and, help them move forward in a way that's positive for them, because we do have a lot of people who are up and coming in the wine world who come to TexSom, especially in our summer camp volunteer group. There are people who became master sommeliers or masters of wine or did the WSET diploma after participating in some of TexSom's events. And I think that's what we want to do, is encourage people in their path and moving along in their career. So, I hope that that is one of the things that happens at TexSom, is that kind of encouragement.
Yeah. Can you actually define what the Sommer Camp is? We've dropped the name of it a couple of times, and it's something that has evolved, but it's something that is super, it really speaks to all of what we're talking about here. So what is Sommer Camp?
Yeah, well, it's the volunteer experience at TexSom, and it was named by the volunteers as summer camp a number of years ago. And so we just stuck with the name and let it be the official name. But it's the volunteer experience at TexSom. And when most people hear volunteer, they think you work and then, you go sleep and you get up the next day and you work again for whatever this event is. And this is to some extent true. At the same time, we really run two events when we do the TexSom conference. We do a public facing side that's for attendees. And then we have a whole other set of meals, opportunities for tasting, summer camp chats, as we call them. They're not as long as seminars, but they're relevant to the topics that people want to hear. And we do all of that for the summer camp volunteer group, in addition to doing the public facing attendee side of TexSom. So the summer camp group really gets their own version of TexSom, which I think to me is a beautiful version of TexSom. I love it. I love that we are able to put together those opportunities, and I think people appreciate them, but they're all geared towards specifically to the volunteers. And we get a lot of interest in that.
Yeah. And people have to apply to be accepted into it. But
Mhm.
I've always seen it as like the incubator. You know what I mean? It's like you're helping give so many opportunities within a very short period of time, not only to learn service and the hard parts of cleaning and, setting up and all that stuff. But, so what is it? Rolling up your sleeves, paying your dues, all that stuff.
Right.
But then also being exposed to a lot of great networking opportunities and fun. You're tired and excited at the same time.
And great wines. I mean, they get wines the regular attendees don't get. Likewise, the attendees get some wines that the volunteers don't get. So it all evens out, but everybody has their own experience. And, I think that is one of the areas of which I am most proud for TexSom, is the mentorship and the encouragement that comes out of the volunteer group. We've had groups from St. Louis who banded together and came down to TexSom. We've had groups from Denver. We now have the Mississippi delegation that comes in every year, And so I think of all the things that I'm proud of for TexSom, that is probably peak for me, closely followed by the fact that I think TexSom helped open up the middle of the country as a valid place to sell wine. It's not strictly TexSom. There were a lot of people involved in that, but I do believe TexSom helped with that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's been one of the big benefits of TexSom to the middle of the country, is that people in St. Louis and Denver and other places, can now get wines that they possibly couldn't get before.
Yeah, the access is much greater.
Yeah.
You could also say something about the extension of TexSom, which is that you mentioned that the Dallas Morning News had a pretty well-known wine awards that TexSom has since been able to kind of acquire through over the years. And I thought it'd be worth mentioning, what that's about.
Yeah. Well, Rebecca Murphy, who was the first female sommelier in Texas, started the Dallas Morning News wine competition in 1985. Dallas Morning News had naming rights to it. Rebecca did all the work for the competition and really took care of it all those years. So we transitioned that from Rebecca to TexSom in 2015, and we have renamed it a couple of times since then. Right now, we're calling it the TexSom Awards, because TexSom Beverage Awards, TBA, seems kind of an odd name to me. But really, it's all beverages. We will take almost any beverages at this point. We've been less able to do beer because beer has shipping and quality control specs that are hard to meet for us because of the refrigeration required all the way through the process. But in terms of, mixers, spirits, sake, cider, wine, of course, we take all of those. And so it's grown over the years. It has its moments where it really, I think we get great selection of wines into that event that I haven't seen some of them before. And I've been in the business many, many years and have fortunately managed to see a lot of wine, but I'm constantly discovering new things through that competition.
That's fantastic. I love it. And it's, it happens at a different part of the year, but it really is, in terms of the people that come together for that, the judges are top quality, we've mentioned Master Soms and Masters of Wine, but also people who are just experts in their field, regardless of certification. And so it's a really impressive collection of people that come together to evaluate these beverages. I think of like Monica Samuels for sake, for instance. So it's not just wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just wine. And the people who do come in for that, as you said, are chosen very much like our speakers for our conference. I mean, they're literally the people who've written the books or who, have been recognized as the experts in their area. Sarah Jane Evans is a good example. She's written a book on Northern Spain. She's about to turn in a book, I think, on Southern Spain. So she has done Southern Spain as a seminar at TexSom this year because I knew she was writing the book on it. So those are some of the people, that I could point out specifically. There are many of them who are good examples of why we invite people for certain positions at TexSom.
I love that. Well, James, this has been really fantastic. I want to say, shamelessly, that I selfishly wanted to do this because my career, my entire interest in wine began at TexSom. And I owe you and TexSom so much to who I am and what I do today because I've been coming for so long and it piqued my interest. It gave me opportunity to learn. I've taken exams through TexSom, through the different organizations that have been partnered with you. And then over the years, it's just been part of my growth, an integral part of my growth. So thank you for doing it. Thank you for not giving up on it. Thank you, I think, from a lot of people who've been able to benefit from it. So I just hope that you keep going.
Yeah, we're almost at 20 years, so we'll see. But, no plans to stop right now. Of course, you're catching me right around TexSom time, so there's always the idea in the back of the head, do we do this again? I think that's been since number one, and will probably continue to be that way. Anybody who's gone through a big event knows that. But I just want to say, you're saying that, and I've heard this from a few other people too. Jonathan Eichholz recently made the comment that he wouldn't be a Master Sommelier except for TexSom because he met his entire cohort that he studied with through TexSom. And hearing those things really, well, one is very emotional for me. I really hope that that's what people are getting out of it. And, to hear that is very special. So thank you. Thank you for all your contributions. As I tell people, TexSom is not one person. It's not two people. Amy Hendrickson currently works with us and, she does a lot of the work, but at the same time, TexSom is everybody that contributes. And that's what makes TexSom what it is. It's still a community event.
100%. Well, I'm looking forward to going. We're recording this right before it starts. So I'm also going to wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Usually during TexSom, I don't talk to you very much because you're kind of just in focus mode. So I'm going to hug you before and I'll hug you after. You. But I'm looking forward to it.
No, we are too. And, it's always a fun event for us as well. It's a lot of work, but it's a fun event. It's great to see everybody. I constantly tell people, let's catch up at TexSom. And then I have to just say, hi, how are you doing? And sort of bye, unfortunately, because there's so many people. But we do enjoy seeing everybody there. I enjoy catching up with friends and we'll look forward to catching up with you there. But thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks much. Bye-bye.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.